Today I've been checking out Terminus Zombie Survivors, which is out now on Steam. It's about to drop into 1.0 and it's currently $15.99. When trying to describe this game, it's pretty difficult not to compare it to Project Zomboid. There is a few key differences, but Project Zomboid is pretty much the ultimate zombie survival game. However, this isn't just a simple knockoff, and when you have a game sitting at overwhelmingly positive with 99% positive reviews at the moment, it definitely stands on its own 2 feet. It actually, weirdly enough, scores a little higher than Project Zomboid, and it's made by one bloke from Korea. The idea of the game is to survive and get to the Terminus and escape. There isn't a whole lot more to the story than that. You can find the terminal by following train lines or by finding a radio and homing in on the signal. Unfortunately, I will say, and it's talked about in some of the reviews, this just leads to speedrunning, and there is certain tactics to make sure you can do it every time, which is a bit of a shame. When you're setting up the game, you have 3 classes to choose from, and you unlock more as you play, and weapon buffs, and you can add traits and some points as well. Leveling up is done generally by doing stuff in the game. You can also learn new things by reading books, usually recipes, just like Project Zomboid. Each time you level up, you will also get a random perk to pick for that run, which is pretty cool. So how does the game work? Well, I think the first thing to talk about is it's turn-based. So you have a certain amount of action points. This can be higher or lower depending on certain attributes, or say you're overweight or you've got a disease or something, and everything costs AP. So looting might be 2.5, opening a door, moving, reading, it all costs you points. When you run out, you pass your turn to the zombies and the survivors get their turn. I will always say I'm not a massive turn-based fan, but in a horror type environment, it does seem to work because one simple mistake, and well, it could be curtains because there's no running away. If you've got no action points, you're stuck. Also, the main difference to say compared to say Project Zomboid is the map layout. It's tile-based and procedurally generated, so you can choose the options at the beginning of how many buildings there is and choose lots of stuff, but you travel between the tiles, so to say. Each tile set will usually have a building or railway or some sort of structure on. So you kind of loot that area and then travel to the next procedural tile, which costs AP. There are about 20 different tile sets in the game, so lots of variations. Supermarket, which will have lots of food. Police station, which will have guns and armor. I know some people don't like procedural generation, but I never found it in this to be too bad. It seemed to flow pretty well. The only problem was, because of this, I was never too bothered about setting up a home base or kind of planning where I would want to go. You know, like in Project Zomboid, you'd be like, ooh, that house next door looks tempting, and off you would go, because you don't know until you leave the map in the area if that building's worth looting. Looting is obviously a big part, and a bit like Zomboid, you just kind of walk over to something, click on it, and it will loot. Loot was pretty fair and usually where it should. I never really struggled for a lot of supplies. What I did like is in your backpack, it sorts it into categories for you. So I'll put food and meds and stuff. That is a great time-saving feature. You can also craft. There's loads of recipes and so much stuff to do. It's like a simple case of just clicking on something and it will craft. There's cars and boats to drive around. You can go fishing and you can even farm. So if you do want that more chilled lifestyle, you can have it. There's also a basic medical system with hunger, thirst, sanity, disease and wounds, and you have to keep an eye on those gauges. Combat is turn-based, well, kinda, but most zombies don't pose a huge threat. As long as you have the action points to walk up to them and dispatch them, you'll usually be okay. However, at night, zombies do become harder, and if you run out of AP at the wrong time, well, you're basically dead. There are a few different zombie types as well. The developers added loads more, which is pretty cool, and there are also survivors who will trade with you and talk. Graphically, the game obviously is not much of a look at. It's a top-down 2D type game. It does what it does well, but I would have loved to have seen a bit more fun and interesting things to look at or things to interact with. It would have been nice if the developer had a little bit of fun with the art style, but once you get into it and use your imagination a little bit, it's functional. And sound-wise, it's basic, but the music isn't too bad. So in conclusion, is this game better than Zomboid? Not really, I don't think so. But It's a very good game. There are a few issues. I think current size of the map doesn't really allow for long-term character customization. A large part of the mechanics in the game seem to be about survival, but that doesn't seem to be how most people play it. It can just all be skipped. RNG, a little bit too much of that. It can screw you over far too easily. In combat, I would like to see that fleshed out a little bit. It's a little bit too simple, which brings down the experience. However, if you love roguelike and zombie games, I think there's something here to like. Anyway, that's all I have to say on this one. I'll catch you later. Goodbye.